One morning, America woke up rich. By the time the sun went down, it didn't matter how much money you thought you had, because most of it was already gone. No war, no warning, just a decade of noise, confidence, and borrowed money, followed by the loudest silence in American history. This is how the roar of the 1920s turned into the Great Depression, and how the country nearly didn't come back from it. Part 1. The Party. Picture America in the early 1920s. The war is over. Factories that used to build weapons are now building cars, radios, and refrigerators. Cities are stacking themselves higher into the sky. Music is loud, money is loose, and almost everyone believes the good times are just getting started. Henry Ford's assembly line turns car production into a sprint. What used to take half a day now takes about 90 minutes. That single idea drags a dozen other industries along with it: steel, rubber, oil, glass. When cars boom, everything connected to cars booms too. By the end of the decade, 10 million homes have a radio playing in the living room. Electricity is spreading. Consumer credit is spreading even faster. Buy the car now, the radio now, the furniture now, and pay for it later. It's the first taste of a lifestyle America hadn't tried before. Spending money you don't actually have yet, on the confident assumption that tomorrow will always pay you back. Not everyone is invited to the party, though. While cities are glowing, rural America is quietly drowning. Farmers who did well during the war are now stuck with falling prices and rising debt, borrowing for new equipment that speeds up how fast they go broke. But the real center of the mania is Wall Street. Regular people, not just bankers, start buying stock on margin, putting down a small fraction of the price and borrowing the rest, betting that stocks only move in one direction. Between 1924 and 1929, the market roughly quadruples. Nobody's asking whether the companies underneath the stock prices are actually worth anything. The line is going up. That's the whole argument. A handful of economists warn that this can't last. Almost nobody listens. Why would you, when everyone around you seems to be getting rich for free? Part 2. The Fall. Late October 1929. The market doesn't dip. It doesn't correct. It falls off a cliff. In a matter of days, tens of billions of dollars in paper wealth simply evaporates. Adjusted for today, well over 200 billion. Trading floors turn into chaos. Phones ring non-stop. People who were rich on Monday are wiped out by Thursday. And here's the trap, hiding inside all that borrowed money from Part 1. Everyone who bought stock on margin now owes the difference, immediately. Brokers start demanding people pay back loans they can't cover, because the stock that was supposed to cover it is now worth a fraction of what it was. Crowds gather outside the stock exchange, saying almost nothing, just watching. The roaring 20s don't fade out. They stop, all at once. Part 3. The Dominoes. A stock market crash alone doesn't have to destroy a country. What comes next does. Banks had quietly funneled deposits into the same risky, over-leveraged market that just collapsed. When the loans they made stop getting repaid, the banks themselves start failing. Thousands of them, one after another. And when people hear their bank might be in trouble, they do the only thing that makes sense to a scared person. They run to pull their money out before it's too late. Lines form outside banks across the country. The problem is, a bank doesn't keep everyone's money in a vault. It's already been lent out. So the panic itself finishes the job the crash started. It doesn't stay inside America's borders either. U.S. banks call in loans they've made overseas, and the shockwave hits Europe. Economies still patching themselves together since the last war. Hard enough to help drag the entire globe into the same downward spiral. Meanwhile, the people in charge keep insisting everything is fine. Newspapers print reassuring headlines. Officials go on the radio to say the economy is fundamentally sound. And millions of people, watching their own lives fall apart in real time, are left wondering which part of that they're supposed to believe. Part 4. The Bottom. By the early 1930s, the party is a distant memory. Unemployment climbs toward 1 in every 4 working Americans. Entire factory towns go quiet as production collapses. Breadlines stretch for blocks. Families who had never gone hungry before are suddenly rationing meals, and teachers start reporting that some children are fainting in class, not from illness, but because they haven't eaten. Then nature adds its own disaster on top of the economic one. Years of aggressive farming had already stripped the soil across the Great Plains. When the rains stop, the topsoil turns to dust, and massive black storms start rolling across entire states, burying farms, choking livestock, and blotting out the sun in the middle of the day. Families in Oklahoma, Kansas, and Texas pack what little they have left and head west, chasing rumors of work. In Washington, President Hoover resists large-scale federal relief, worried it will make the country too dependent on government help. Whatever the intention, his name quickly becomes attached to the suffering itself. Shantytowns built from scrap wood and cardboard get nicknamed after him. The lowest point comes in the summer of 1932, when thousands of desperate World War I veterans march on Washington asking for pay they'd been promised. They're met not with a deal, but with tear gas and burned camps. For a country that had always told itself a certain story about who it was, that image is hard to explain away. Part 5. The Reset. In March 1933, a new president takes the podium. Franklin Roosevelt tells a frightened country that the only thing they really have to fear is fear itself. And then, unlike his predecessor, moves fast. Within his first weeks, new federal programs put unemployed young men to work planting trees and building infrastructure. Soon after, millions more are hired to build roads, bridges, schools, and dams, rebuilding the country's physical backbone and, just as importantly, giving people something to do besides wait in line. Roosevelt doesn't stop at jobs. He rebuilds the rules underneath the whole system. A new federal agency to police Wall Street, another to guarantee that if your bank fails, your savings don't disappear with it, and a new program, Social Security, that promises for the first time that growing old in America doesn't have to mean falling through the floor. Slowly, painfully, the country starts to breathe again. Lights come on in towns that never had electricity. People start depositing money in banks instead of pulling it out in a panic. It isn't instant, and it isn't complete, but for the first time in years, the line on the chart stops only pointing down. The Great Depression didn't end with a party the way the 20s began with one. It ended slowly, with rebuilt banks, rebuilt roads, and a country that had to relearn the hard way that an economy built entirely on confidence and borrowed money was never as solid as it looked. And just as America finally started standing back up, something else was already gathering on the horizon, something that wouldn't stay contained to one country this time. This isn't the only one. There are always more. Subscribe. Don't miss the next one.